Okay, welcome to the 13th video in this series of adapting a 2005 Mustang drivetrain to a 1974 Mercury Capri. Master plan being to enter a 24 Hours of Lemons race here. I am drilling a hole to let the wiring harness, the Mustang wiring harness, pass through the bulkhead. You can see the smaller opening there. That was from the original Capri wiring harness, a much smaller wiring harness than what the Mustang carries with it. Anyway, we had to make a bigger hole to pass that through, and a similar hole on the other side. And you saw Keaton doing some final welding on the roll cage inside. We've held off on doing wiring while we got the roll cage wrapped up. We actually have one more piece to go on the roll cage. You'll see that in a minute. But right now I'm hooking up wiring harness to the anti-lock brake system and then running the harness through. In an earlier series, you saw me bagging sections of the harness that we aren't using right away to kind of simplify this as we're trying to put things in place into the dash. Now Keaton's going to step in and finish some final welding on the roll cage, which is essentially we need a brace for the race seat there, so that if you were hit from behind, the seat can't collapse back too much. So with the seat all the way forward for our shortest drivers, there was 6 inches between this bar and the seat back. And with it all the way back for the tallest drivers, it just rested against that brace as a safety feature. Then we're both switching over to wiring. And I'm getting a spot for the computer, the Mustang computer. And this is essentially the same location it was in the Mustang. It's on the passenger side bulkhead, or just ahead of the bulkhead, the firewall. And then Keaton is going to work on disassembling the Mustang steering column, because we need the ignition switch and transponder. The Mustang 2005 Mustang has a chip in the key, and so the transponder needs to see that chip, or the theft deterrent systems kick in on the Mustang and we wouldn't be able to run it. So Keaton's taking apart that steering column and trying to save as much of it as he can, especially that transponder and the ignition system. I, meanwhile, am setting up the fuse box and computer that used to live up in on the Mustang, that would live up in the front passenger side engine compartment. We don't have room in the Capri for it there, so it's going to live in the passenger side footwell. And here I am cutting holes to get that, get the wiring harness passed through on that side. Now I'm hooking up the main blocks to the to this big fuse box that lives on the Mustang. It lives under the hood up by the engine, but in our Capri it's going to be back here. And I'm actually have just made a mistake that nobody can see in the video, but I didn't tighten a screw enough. It kind of cross-threaded and it felt like it was tight, but one of those blocks of wiring terminals that come into that fuse box is not tight enough, and it will give us some trouble here in a minute. Meanwhile, though, Keaton's getting the key adapted, and he's actually adding the light switch from the Mustang. So you're just going to zip tie it to the roll cage here. And we're also going to use the instrument panel from the Mustang. And we were actually even able to adapt the blinker and wiper switches that you see me trial fitting several times, and so this Capri now has 2 keys. One, the original Capri key, and all that really does is unlock the Capri steering column, and then up above it, kind of zip tied up above it, is the Mustang key assembly, and so you gotta run both keys. It's a potential for trouble, and we will fix that. But for now, this was a quick way to get set up. Keaton also added a section of the dash there that has the hazard lights, the accessory, the cigarette lighter 12-volt accessory port, which was handy. We were able to run our cell phones with a GPS and lap tracker. And then it also has the anti-lock, not anti-lock, what is it? The traction control button is in there that he put in. We just did a trial fitting of the steering wheel, make sure everything is going to work there. But basically, the dash just was kind of plug and play. Everything got plugged in. Then we're taking care of grounding points. There are several under the dash that had to be grounded up, or had to be grounded. As we were trying to finish up wiring, Keaton's wife Elizabeth came and gave us a hand. She actually worked a lot on the wiring for the anti-lock brake system and the wiring for the fuel cell and the fuel pump back there. So that helped us a lot. And I'm working on making. First we're working on where to put the fuel pressure regulator. We're running a separate fuel pressure regulator, kind of an aftermarket one, because we don't have the Ford fuel pump. We couldn't fit it in the fuel cell, and the Ford Mustang fuel pump is a variable rate, flow rate system, and we were just going to go with the one that, the fuel pump that came in the fuel cell, which is just a constant, always on, and we had to use a separate fuel regulator. Here I'm putting it up on the passenger side of the fender in the Capri, and it actually isn't going to work there. You'll see me move it here shortly. Came in the next day, and after doing some measurements and looking at what we needed to do to actually feed the fuel into the engine, it was better to place that regulator on the driver's side. So that got done, and now we're building fluid lines. And we used some of the hardware and lines that Rick Barnes brought us, and again, a big thank you to Rick. And then we sourced some of our own, and then Evil Energy fuel filter you see there, Rick brought that, and we used an Evil Energy pressure regulator. Both of those worked great, and performed great. So did the fuel cell. So all this works out. This is just kind of temporarily running the fuel lines. We know that they'll be located along this driver's side frame rail, but I've got to fine tune the placement of the lines. This is just kind of getting a general measurement, a general length. I've cut it a little bit long, so there's room to reposition. And those big lock cutters did not do the job. We had to. Well, they did part of it anyway. Here it's more fluid lines and fittings, making the gas lines here. And then Keaton's going to run the return line. See him pop up. And then we're gonna try and start this thing. And I'm going to switch this over for a little bit of regular live video where you can hear us, running the fuel pump. We find a leak and fix that, and then try and start it for the first time, which doesn't go exactly as planned because I didn't tighten part that I needed to. Anyway, that's coming up right now. I'm going to stop the narration. Anything else we're missing to think about? No, it'll make itself apparent here in a second. Okay. All right, you ready? Yep. I hear a fuel pump. Oh, I got pressure. We're coming up to 10. We got about 20 psi.
All right, we're leaking.
Okay, shut her down. Go ahead, turn it on. Now, there is wrench flats that I could use to tighten against each other, but we're good. It looks like I got it.
Looks like we're holding steady at 20. We might need to let more pressure in.
Okay, clockwise to increase. Where are we at? 30. Let's just leave it there at 35 for now. And try and start.
I don't know if I'm ready for this.
Let's let this dog out. Come on.
Probably gonna be loud. Earmuffs loud, or just go for it?
Yeah, we'll just shut it off if it starts. You want me to start it?
I think you should have the honors. Unless you're nervous about starting.
No, I'm fine. Just watch the dog. I don't want him under it when it's...
Oh man.
Okay, here we go. Test run 1. Nothing. We're not getting some kind of error. We'll read codes tomorrow, or in the morning I'll bring out their code reader and see what it tells me. Okay, but for the moment, let's unhook the battery. That's okay. I figured there would be some troubleshooting on this side of things. Mm-hmm. So it took a couple evenings of troubleshooting, but we did find the junction that hadn't been tightened down enough. And then now we're going to show actually starting the car.
Woo! Yeah! Yeah! There we go. That's an engine.
That's an engine. So we had an engine. Obviously, we're very pleased about this, but we also only had about 2 weeks to go before the race and a lot of work to be done still. Brakes will be a big part of what we look at next. Thanks for following along, and hit like if you've enjoyed it, and we'll have more for you soon. Thanks.